Mhm. I- yes, we are live. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to our episode 112 of our podcast, David Ortega B. I have an honored guest here today with me, Leah Morris. And Leah is an established life and relationship transition coach and the visionary behind Life Remade, a holistic personal coaching service. Leah's professional journey fueled her transformative experiences spans over 6 years of dedicated support for individuals navigating relationships, transitions, career change, and spiritual awakenings, among other life altering events. Her unique somatic integrative approach, coupled with certification in hypnotherapy, sets her apart in the field. Currently, Leah is on the verge of publishing her inaugural book, The Integrity Sessions, which we are going to discuss today, and a powerful guide aimed to help readers discover their true selves and transform their lives. Thank you, Leah, for being here. It's a pleasure to have this interview with you and to discuss about your book, which is really, really exciting.
So exciting. Yes, thank you for having me on again. I think the last time I spoke to you was about a year ago, maybe.
Yeah, probably. Yes.
Yeah, so a lot has happened. Thank you so much for having me back.
It's my pleasure. So, Leah, let me just have an overview of how did you arrive to the idea of this book. What is the main purpose of the teachings that you are going to have in the book, and just enlighten me with that knowledge about what it is about.
Yeah, good question. I think with what brought me to the idea of the book, I'm the kind of person that is constantly writing down things. And so if you look at my Google Drive, I probably have about 3 or 4 books in there. And which is great. And I think that they also don't really do anything when they're in the Google Drive, right? So having this be a decision to actually take, a lot of those ideas and put them finally into a format and publish them, I think was actually, I think I was just scared to do that for a really long time. And so I can't really tell you how exactly I came to this idea of integrity for the book, but I can say that it's been something that's been brewing for a really long time. And this year, about June or July, someone approached me and said, you know, I want you to put together a book. I think that it would be a really good idea for you to put a book together. And I'd heard that throughout my life, especially the last few years, a handful of times. And this time it just kind of clicked. And I said, this is the year that I finally do it. And when I was thinking about the book, I obviously thought about my clients. I thought about my business, which is, focused on helping people to transform their lives. And I thought of the information that I've already written, of the ideas that I already have, and now with this new intention of it being seen by people, what's the bridge there? And a word that's always stuck out for me, even since I was about 8 years old, is integrity. And I never knew why. I was fascinated with the word. I thought when I learned the word in third grade, I think it was, I remember learning integrity is what you do when no one else is around. And integrity is how you behave, when there's no one else to kind of like witness you.
Mm.
And I've always been fascinated by that because I was like, well, what's the importance of it? If no one else is there to see what you're doing, like you could just do whatever you want, you could say whatever you want, you could be whoever you want. But the more I've lived my life, I've realized how important it is, and that it's essential when it comes to transforming your life and going through life changes. And I think a lot of people that I work with lose their integrity throughout their lives, which
Mm.
is what creates a lot of turmoil and a lot of misalignment. They don't like their jobs, they don't like their relationships, they don't like themselves. And it always comes down to you are not living in accordance to your true integrity. And
Mm.
so that's kind of the path that I took to arrive at this topic being, what I wanted to dive into and speak more on.
I couldn't agree more, because I think that when you are aligned with who you are, with your values, with the way you express simply, I think that's the freest expression of yourself. And that's where you can really tap into your creativity, into your inner wisdom, and the ideas just flow. And as you mentioned, I think that you are writing so much because that's your integrity, that's your own design, that's your own wisdom. And there's nothing that is going to interrupt that, because it's like journaling in your diary, no? So I think it's just extremely important. And I agree also with the concept that we lose track of who we are when we are trying to please someone, or when we are trying to fit into a mold, into a certain job, or into a certain relationship many times.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we are constantly trying to fit into those, let's say, customs that we try to use for a certain period of time, and then we just get rid of that, and then you are again comfortable with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So no.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think, what you're saying, even the expression of me writing a bunch of different ideas, it does have to do with integrity and design and the way that I am when no one else is watching, right? Like that idea of no one
Yeah.
was going to see any of this stuff. What do I do with my time? Who am I? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? And I think it takes a lot of courage to one come to terms with that, and come to terms with like the many different facets of yourself that maybe no one else knows about, but then to take that awareness and to actually like do something about it and live in integrity. That's that full integration of self, is the who you are behind closed doors matches who you are in front of everyone else.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's also when you find certain people in your life where you just feel really comfortable speaking, discussing any kind of topic, and you really can be your true self. No, you don't feel judged or censored or something, which is right now it's a very very big problem, because we cannot speak really many things. And I just did an episode on that, because I think when we don't express all that we have, all of those emotions, all of those things that we really want to say, that we probably don't agree with certain things, we start to get sick inside,
Yeah.
because the emotions are energy. So that energy has to find an outlet. If it doesn't have an outlet, it will just start to um, get uh, stagnant in your body, and it's going to create a build-up of toxins, and then you have symptoms, and from their chronic diseases. It's what is happening now.
Absolutely. And actually, one of the chapters in the book talks about that.
Mm,
Um, and also what you said before of like being around the right people who you're allowed to fully express yourself. Another chapter in the book talks about that as well. You haven't
mm.
even, read the book. And so I love that you're able to really like touch on these different pieces, from your inner wisdom too, and your own experience. Um, the the book shares a couple of my personal stories, and I want to share one of them right now
Yeah.
that touches on what you're talking about, that stagnant, trapped energy of
Mhm,
of suppressing the truth of what you're truly feeling and experiencing.
mhm.
So the example I give is that, um, and there's many examples, throughout my life, but I think that this one was the easiest to tell because it was my first experience that I was really aware of. I was in high school and I was going through a lot of turmoil at home. My brother and I, we are still very close, but my parents had gotten divorced, and my brother went to live with my dad while I remained living with my mom, and I really missed him. And what happened was and my mother was feeling really abandoned in that moment because she was dealing with her own, inner turmoil. She was dealing with her own projections from her past. And she
Mm,
felt like since my brother left her, that he was abandoning her. And so she took it out on me in the form of being, very strict, very rigid, I was getting blamed for a lot of things. And I couldn't really understand why all this was changing because I was a child at the time and I was already missing my brother. But what I did instead of speaking up because I didn't have the tools I needed, I didn't have the space or didn't feel safe enough to speak up about what I was feeling, I just kind of took these things and I internalized them. And I started losing sleep. I started
mm.
almost collapsing from exhaustion whenever I would visit my dad because I was like holding it all so tightly inside. And my dad, I remember saying to me, "What are you doing at your mom's that's so tiring? Like, why are you so exhausted when you come visit me?" And I didn't know. I had no idea. I just knew that in his home, I felt like I could finally, rest and not be so wound up. Months and months went by of this, and one day I broke out in hives all over my body. And
Mm,
my mom was concerned. She was like, "What is going on? Like, maybe we need to take you in. The medicine isn't working for these hives." And looking back now, obviously the hives have gone away um and everything, but looking back now, my body was crying out
yeah.
for to not be treated that way and to be with my brother, which was more in my integrity, and to tell my mom, "Hey, take it easy on me. This is your stuff, not mine." And because I didn't know how to speak up and draw those boundaries and even tune into my integrity, I one was collapsing all the time, from exhaustion, and then two, my body broke out in all these hives. And I ended up moving in with my dad shortly after that, just because I finally somehow inside listened to that inner voice saying, like, this isn't normal, this isn't right. Like, you can choose a different path. And luckily that was an option for me at the time, as I know some don't have that option. But um, very clear example, looking back through my life of how wise our bodies are in knowing when we're living out of alignment.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
think I have listened so many times in these past days that our brain doesn't pick up these kind of energies as much as our bodies, because our bodies are more perceptive of that internal energy balance that we have. And that's when we are just finding an outlet, as I was mentioning before. No, and I think there are plenty of examples for everyone. If any of the people that is listening right now can just take a memory regression of their time, I think that we all have lived through those situations, either in a job, either with our parents, either in a relationship, or just entering into space when you are in a meeting or in an event and you feel certain kind of energy that you don't match with that, but you don't say anything, you stay there, and over time you really feel the effect. No, for example, for me it was my stomach. My stomach always told me that something was not right, because I suffer a lot of um, intestinal diseases when I was also in my teenage years. uh, I had salmonella twice.
Wow.
I had several things, and it was also the way that I was letting out my emotions in terms of the conflict that my parents also had, because they were constantly discussing and they were, well, trying to separate, but they didn't separate. So for me, it was a very strong conflict with my father, and I didn't even stand to be in my house if he was also there. So I have to go and do something else. So I have a lot of exercise. I stayed in the university, in the library. I stayed in school. So I just find it somewhere to be, but not in my house. And I was not comfortable to be in my house.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays, my home is like the solitude of strength, no, because that I protect a lot my space, because I know that that's what I need to be in balance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I try to keep my house very calm, very quiet, sort of saying. And I just feel that integrity when I'm home. No, so for me, being at home is like recharging everything.
Yeah, it's your sanctuary.
Yeah, it's a sanctuary. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I think that's the like noticing how your body is feeling before your mind can conceptualize it. I think is like the first step.
Mm-hmm.
And taking that and saying, how do I take that awareness and make my life match it a bit more? For you, it's in the home or with friendships, or the people that you surround yourself with. And I know that's the same for me too. It's very much like, how do I you know make sure that the things that are within my control are more reflective of what it is that I know to be true about how I want to be feeling, and the well-being that I'm after.
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think even in the way that we have conflict with people, right? Like, I think having your home be super peaceful and settled is that baseline that you want. But then there's instances that happen where maybe there isn't that level of safety, or you have to be um, able to take those instances where that peace is disrupted, maybe by like a pandemic, or like some unwelcome guest coming into your home, or maybe something like is leaking, and just really figuring out, how do I want to handle conflict in integrity? What is it that I'm feeling in this moment? And it's a constant like checking in with yourself, which is why I love it so much, because it's always evolving with us. There's always that opportunity for the next level of integrated evolution that we can have, even in the midst of having these like foundational pieces for us, like like our home and like our friendships. So I don't know if that fully made sense, but it's like,
No, yeah.
I feel like integrity stretches in so many ways and in so many different layers across our lives and over time, that it's never apart from us. It's always an option.
It's always an option, and I would say that it's always should be always our own choice to do it, and that doesn't mean that you can be disrespectful with someone. That just means that you we should be able to show our true selves instead of trying to show just a mask or something that pretends to be good with everyone or aligned with what people say or those things. And I had just an experience with my daughter that she also had several calls throughout this year, and particularly this year was very marked because my wife had another boss, and she has been stressed a lot, and she spends more time with her than with me, my daughter. So I think she senses a lot that energy of stress from her mom, and she reflects that in those multiple calls. And the last time, this previous call that she had, we went with a homeopathic doctor, and she interviewed her before prescribing anything, no? But she spent like 45 minutes talking with her.
Love
And
that.
she just asked everything that she was feeling, and she even cried a little bit.
Good.
So she took out many things that she was feeling, and she just took the homeopathic medicine, which of course you know that it's herbal things, and doses are very minimal, and she's okay in just 3 days. It was just one day with fever, which is the protection of our body to kill the bacteria or the viruses, and then she just recovered very well. So,
Wow.
and nothing like the other time that in this year also she took antibiotics, and 3 days with antibiotics and she was sick from the stomach. So
Oh yeah, those are like just a
yeah,
bomb to the whole system.
yeah. So that's the response of our bodies. They know what to do, and we sometimes get in the way because we think too much and we don't feel enough, let's say, or we don't allow to feel enough, and we don't allow ourselves to express, no, what we feel.
Yeah, and it's like a lifelong thing too. I think there's
Mhm.
always new ways that I'm learning that maybe maybe I'm not fully living in integrity or expressing fully. And I think it comes from, this fear, many different fears, fear of rejection, fear of maybe not belonging, fear of disappointing other people. You name it. I think there's this fear that keeps us in a state of almost wanting to fit in those boxes. And saying like, see, I can conform. I can be what you want me to be. I can make you proud in the ways that you want, me to be, and totally abandon our own sense of truth and our own sense of self in those moments. But it's that constant, like, compassionate, like, okay, I see you're just trying to maybe fit in. You're just trying to do that very human thing that we all do. Um, but what's really going to totally liberate us and free us and connect us more deeply and be in belonging with the people that truly appreciate all of us is to not live within those boxes and to say the hard things and have those difficult conversations.
Mhm.
That fear of like, if I say this, will I mess things up? Will I upset other people even more? The truth is it's all already messed up. Like
Yeah.
life is messy. And so say the hard thing, have the hard conversation. And I think the reward for that is much greater than the one where you keep things inside and your body suffers as a result of that.
Yeah. I was remembering a podcast episode, which I'm going to send you also, that is from Jordan Peterson, and he speaks about these conflicts that when we are in a couple or in any kind of relationship and you don't want to have the conflict, you don't want to have the discussion or the argument, you delay the things and you just keep it to yourself. And he says that any conflict that is delayed is conflict multiplied and enhanced. And I agree a lot with that, because whenever we don't feel comfortable, even if they are kind of dumb things, we should be able to express them, because otherwise one dumb thing multiplied, I don't know, 100 times, it's not going to be a small thing. It's going to be huge, and you are going to create just resentment and toxic emotions, and you are going to start having symptoms in your character, in your mood, in sleep, as you mentioned. Sleep is also, I think, sleep is one of the first things that is affected when we have problems, because our mind, our unconscious mind, when we are asleep, either you have bad dreams and you don't sleep well, or you really cannot sleep and you feel tired, and from there you start scaling up.
Mm-hmm.
No?
Yeah, it's losing the sleep. It, like, what is the word I'm looking for? Exponentially increases the problems.
Mm-hmm.
Because all of a sudden we lose our capacity to manage our stress, to communicate clearly. And so it is one of those, I agree, it is one of those first signs that you see, some kind of something's off. Um, and what a beautiful like tool, to use as a gauge of how are you sleeping? It's something I ask all my clients. How are you sleeping? And
Yeah.
they're like, what? I'm talking about changing my career. And because I
So
focus
ask me.
yeah, exactly. Because I focus on like the holistic, piece, and like looking at someone as all these different elements, they show up with their career problem, and they end up understanding that, oh, actually, this isn't a career problem. This is so much deeper and so much more layered and so much more rich. And when they're finally able to see, the root of all of their um, dis-ease, they can actually do something about it that will be sustainable. I think a lot of people change their careers or change their relationships thinking that's the problem. The career's the problem, the relationship's the problem. It's just a symptom. That's just like a loud symptom that is easy to point the finger at. But when we look at the root, then we can finally see, here's how I can change my life for good. And that's integrity. That's looking at, how has your integrity been compromised? How have you not fully been yourself in all of these different ways? Um, and that's what I love about what I do, is just sometimes I get reviews from clients like 3-4 years after we've worked together. And I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that person. And they say, it's been years since I've worked with Leah, and I wanted to circle back and speak to how my life has still changed all these years later. And that's because we aren't focusing on the quick fixes. We're focusing on the root of the issue. And just like that, homeopathic doctor spoke to your daughter and spent the time. I think Western doctors are so quick to diagnose and treat.
Yeah.
And instead, the more holistic way to look at that is, yeah, what's going on at home? What do you need to express? How is it that you're feeling about your life? And the result is a quicker, more lasting healing.
Yeah. It's a world of difference when you compare those two approaches, because I have that fresh example of my daughter, and the other doctor just asked 2 or 3 questions to her and quickly, well, you are going to take this 3 days and every 12 hours, and that's it. No? And I said, oh my God, that's why we go to the doctor, so that we can just pick up some medicine and that's it. I could look that and I know that that medicine can work, but I don't want that medicine because I know the side effects, no? But when you listen or you witness the other doctor that really contacts the person, even by Zoom, because the experience was not physical, because my daughter was in her house and the doctor was in the office, and we went, my wife and I went with her, and even with that, she could address the eyes, the expressions, what she felt, and she also was feeling secure to speak, safe to speak. No, and that is something that is very important in everywhere, in any kind of thing that you are doing. Feeling safe to speak is extremely important, because I think that that's something that will allow you to heal. No.
Yeah, absolutely. And um, one of the main things I focus on is community, and like who are you surrounding yourself with? What does your community look like? And we, unfortunately, when we're kind of vulnerable and needing to experience some kind of healing or change in our lives, we can be really quick to jump at the first sign of like someone offering help. Um, and we hope that these people offering help have good intentions, but sometimes there's this tendency to want to tell for others to want to tell people how to live their lives. And I think that is, it works for some people maybe temporarily, but I think that one of the, actually the first chapter I talk about is about this. And it's if they're not pointing you back to your integrity, if they're not pointing you back to the truth inside of you, and really looking at like, well, what do you need? Who are you at your core? And being able to guide you back towards that internal sense of self and self-assuredness, then it may not be the right community to be in, or the right, group of friends, or the right teacher to follow, or even coach or doctor, and so always tread really lightly, because what you're saying is true, that ability to fully feel safe to express that in a way that is true to self, and not just trying to please someone else or trying to fit in the box of what the community or friends, are wanting. That makes all the difference. Absolutely. And that happens in families too, with parents. And gosh, I can only imagine how my life might have been different if in that high school memory there was a sit down conversation, and there could have been, maybe I wouldn't have had hives. Maybe I, would have been able to have more energy. But they were doing the best they could, and we're all doing that. And so I think this book really speaks to all of those different facets of how we interact with each other and how we interact with ourselves. There's opportunity for more integrity in all of the ways that we show up in life.
Yeah. And I also relate to many of these concepts, because to begin with, the first chapter that you're mentioning. I think that the problem with a lot of people everywhere in relationships or in your job or wherever you are interacting is that you don't even know what you want. You don't even know who you are because you don't have time. No, people said, like, always say, I don't have time to just sit and reflect. Who am I? What do I want? What are the next step in my life? Or if I did something wrong, what I did, what was the thing that I can learn from that. No, going back, for example, when we were previously discussing our launch of the books. So if I didn't reflect in my launch of my book and I didn't reflect on the mistakes, I could repeat the same very easily, and I could just keep repeating my story, no, and become a victim.
Yeah.
So that's the initiation of the victims. They just don't have time to reflect on their mistakes or on their own way of not expressing what they feel, and they keep falling in the same loop, no?
It perpetuates, yeah, and maybe that's the first step, is committing to that self-reflection and making the time. If it's important, you will find the time, you will make the time. We have so much time on our hands, and I get it, it's also limited too. And but to be able to sit with ourselves and even ask the question that I ask all my clients, which is, what are you pretending not to know? And that takes a lot of people a while to answer, which is perfect, because it's like, oh shoot, like, what am I pretending not to know? And I ask myself that still, and I find answers that surprise me,
Yeah.
but those answers are the ones that will set you on a path toward such a deeper and richer way of living your life, and to be surrounded by people who, also offer that depth and richness, because they're actually seeing you for who you are, and appreciating and acknowledging, the truth of who you are.
Yes, and I think that also people kind of sometimes behave like teenagers, no, like rebels against their own self, because they know what they have to do, they know what they have to change, but they don't do things, and they keep repeating the mistakes or the pain that they are feeling, and then they complain with people that their lives are miserable, but they are their own cause. So they are their own uh, mistake, let's say, no, or repetition of things, and that's something that I don't know. For me is sometimes desperating that someone doesn't want to see the mistake which is right in front of their face, no. And I said, well, what do you think is going to happen if you keep repeating that? No, if you keep doing that same choice, if you keep choosing that same lifestyle, if you keep choosing that same way to approach your boss or whoever or your employee, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think it's going to be fixed just by magic? And when you face them like that, they don't have any other way to say no, but still there is some block inside of them that doesn't allow them to break free and say, it is my own fault, it is my own making, and I am doing and choosing that because I just want to feel pain. And why do I want to feel pain? Probably because I grow up in pain, witnessing that was normal, witnessing that was the way people loved me, because they make me feel pain, no?
Yeah, absolutely. Why do I keep choosing this? that is such a powerful question. And I think more often the answer is, well, because either it's familiar or because I think I deserve
Mhm.
it for some reason.
Yeah.
And then again, asking why, why is it familiar? Why do you feel you deserve maybe to keep choosing this life? And um, questions are so powerful, especially the right ones, and especially when you have the courage to answer them with as
Yeah.
much depth and honesty and integrity as you can. Um, and I think I often deal with people who know what they're supposed to do and then they don't. And so that question that you're saying, like, what do you think is going to keep happening? Like, they've already asked themselves that question sometimes. Like, I know if I keep doing this, I'm not going to get a different result. So then I like to ask the question, what are you afraid of losing if you chose something different? And that's where we kind of get into some other stuff too. It's like, by continuing to choose the thing that is making you miserable, we're often getting something out of it. There's some kind of benefit for us, whether that's a sense of belonging, whether that's a sense of security somehow. There's this benefit to continuing to make that choice. And so
Mhm.
when you speak that out loud and you really face, like, is the benefit outweighing, is the cost benefit, like, what's the
Yeah.
analysis there? And that's when they're really able to see it, for what it is, and decide whether they want to keep choosing that for the small benefit that it's providing, or if they're willing to take a risk on themselves and make a different choice. And all the potential benefits that are behind that other door, should they choose to go a different route. So I feel like I totally can relate to what you're saying, that frustration of, like, why why keep choosing this if you're just going to keep complaining about it? And it's like,
Yeah.
it is a very psychological, like, thing that as humans we choose the devil we know over the devil we don't. And
Yeah.
that is just such a common thing that I see.
Yeah. I was speaking once with a client, and she wanted to move from the city. So I asked her, so where do you want to move? I don't know if I want to go. She named 3 or 4 different cities or states or
Mm.
where she could probably move. And I told her, well, this place is good because it has this and that. And I just describe a little bit the life of these places.
Mm.
And she keep finding excuses not to go to those places. And I just launch a very quick sentence, let's say, to tell her, well, I think deeply you don't want to move because you keep finding excuses to not going somewhere. No?
Mm.
And she just told me, I think you are right. I'm not ready. I'm not ready to do it because I keep finding excuses. And it doesn't matter that you are not ready, but recognizing that it's a breakthrough because
Totally.
now you see that you are not ready, and now you can ask another question: why am I not ready, or why am I waiting for, or why am I afraid to lose, as you mentioned? No? Because many times, as you ask that question, that is very powerful as well, we are afraid of losing many times comfort.
Yeah.
Comfort, that is the word. And comfort means that is probably the environment that is familiar,
Mhm.
or that you don't want to do pretty much any effort to
Mm.
go up. No.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Comfort does distill that, to it kind of boils it all down. It does have to do with comfort. That's, yeah, why we, talk about comfort zones and getting outside your comfort zone. And I love that example too, because suddenly she didn't have to have the inner conflict anymore. And it became more about, what is the truth? What is the truth?
Yeah.
And like they say, the truth will set you free, and it always does. And it may not give you the answers that you are thinking that it will give you, or you're wanting it to give you,
Yeah.
but that sense of freedom that you have when you finally get rid of, the fog of everything that isn't true and everything that isn't in integrity, it just makes life a lot easier to navigate moment by moment.
Yes.
Mhm.
What can you tell me about the lessons or the chapters in the book that probably address the problem where people have to face certain aspects of their own personality when they go into a job or into some kind of relationships? They, let's say that they have to behave as much as they can in these environments so that they can sustain their lives, because not everyone can do what probably we do, no, or not everyone wants also to do what we do.
Mhm.
So other people want choose a job, but they don't know how to be in integrity with themselves in that job. How do you address that problem?
Mhm. Well, the way that I see all people is that we are so multifaceted that we play different roles in our lives. We play the
Mhm.
role of, I play the role of wife, I play the role of friend, I play the role of daughter, coach. There's so many different roles that I play. I'm not just one. And that's the beauty of, being human these days, is that we can live out our integrity in many different ways. And so when you are in a job, for instance, that really, maybe you're having to answer to other people, which isn't a bad thing. I think recognizing what is it that I value the most in my jobs, in my career, in my work environment, what are my core needs? And
Mhm.
focusing in on like the top 5 things that must be present. And what I mean by core needs or values is, like, maybe for me, for instance, one of my core values in my career is freedom and autonomy. So really being able to choose my own schedule, to, not have to answer to somebody, to be able to use my creativity is another value that I have. Some people really value security and opportunity for growth, so everybody's different. And so when you're in those work environments, I think life is never going to be perfect, but it can be in alignment with what it is that you feel is most important for you. And so, for instance, struggle from time to time. I'm a small business owner with that sort of not knowing exactly how many clients I'm going to get per year or per month, and so that's there's for me different things that I'm giving up as being a small business owner, as opposed to going and working for somebody. But
Mhm.
this is in alignment with my values. And so really continuing to focus in on that when you're in an environment that maybe you're struggling with your boss, or um, you're not maybe feeling valued as much as you should be, I would ask, is this still in alignment with your core needs? And if it
Mhm.
isn't, so I'm talking about like top 5 core needs. If it isn't, then what work do you need to do around those needs to make sure that it does become that? And that might mean having a hard conversation with your boss, or it might mean, asking for the raise, or it might mean shifting gears to another company, or moving to a job that's closer to home. It just depends on like what it is that the values are needing, to be seen.
Mhm.
Um, and then everything else outside of that, understand that, again, there is no perfect. Like
Yeah.
for me, with the whole stable income thing. Like, I generally know what I'll make, but I don't have a sense of like secure numbers. Like I can't count on a salary per se, like a lot of people can in their jobs. But for me, that is an outlier value. That's something that doesn't fall into my core needs. And so it's something that I know, unless my values change at some point, which they do, we evolve, we change. Unless my values change at some point, I'm just going to continue staying in my lane and focusing on making sure my core needs are met right now. And that's what keeps me happiest and fulfilled and the best version of myself that I can be. So does that answer that question?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, very, very well. And I agree with that because as we mentioned again, people need time to reflect what are those five core needs before moving and changing or asking for anything, no? Because they sometimes they want to do the change instantaneous. And they just want life to know what they want when they don't even know what they want. So that's difficult, no? As we say, the universe doesn't know how to interpret your desires if you don't even know your own emotions, no? So you need to go and have some time, have some writing, journaling, and I think that's the most valuable asset that you can make, because once you put it in paper or in a drawing or whatever, however you want to express that, I think you are seeing the picture clearly and from above, and you can decide with tools, you can decide with arguments, you can decide with your own truth, and that is being in integrity with yourself, no?
Absolutely. Yeah. I agree. Like the writing down of things it takes sometimes our ideas and like the things that we're feeling and our thoughts can kind of loom over us like a cloud. And
Yeah.
so they seem more overwhelming until you put them in front of you and you can see them in on paper and you are looking at it from a higher perspective. There's a lot to be said about like that sense of personal empowerment when you take the time to do the work, to write things down, to, to get out of you what is kind of haunting you up here. Um, and I think that's a constant practice for me. I don't know if you, have that as a practice too, is especially anytime I'm feeling stuck or confused about, needing to process something, I take my pen and I write things down, or I start typing in my Google documents and, make sure that it's not just gonna keep festering inside, that I have some external like viewpoint of it.
Yes, I also practice that because I think declutters your space, no? Allows you to have more peace of mind, and you also sleep much better because usually those clouds and those thoughts and those loops of ruminative cycles that we have around something that we know what to do, but we really haven't addressed specifically what it is. At night, they haunt you.
Yeah.
And they really take your sleep away. And you get up probably at 2 or 3 in the morning with ideas or with things because you have something inside that you haven't been able to put in paper or in specific words, no?
Yep, absolutely. And I think there's a level of like surrender that comes with that because sometimes we're afraid of the truth that's inside of us. Like if I write this down, then it means it's true, or then it means that I have to like be accountable to myself or be responsible for that truth. And so we avoid it. And I'm guilty of that too. But it doesn't go anywhere, and so
No.
I feel like the sooner you can face the hard things or even the beautiful things that come out through you, the quicker you can arrive at some kind of a solution or some kind of an answer, or, back in the driver's seat of your life.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it makes you feel in control again. No, in the little slices that you can have control, because also life cannot be controlled at all. No, at some points.
Absolutely.
And I think we we have covered a lot of the book, I think, or
Yes.
the chapters that are going to be discussed in the book. And I think that I would like to round up or wrap up this topic with probably, what do you do with the things that you are in integrity with yourself? How do you uh, make them either give you more power, or how do you become more grateful with those things that you are doing well? Because uh, we have talked about the negative things, let's say, or the things that we can fix and make more balance, but how can we enhance the positive ones?
Mm-hmm. So if I'm understanding, the question is more focusing on, like, when you are in integrity, what does that look like?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that I'll speak to an example that I use in the book. It's a really easy, maybe relatable example. I When I was on my sort of, I call this my personal awakening journey, I started to feel a bit of a disconnect in my friendships.
Hmm.
And as somebody who was trying to practice integrity, I decided that maybe it was time that I addressed that. And I wasn't sure how or when, but it came to me, as a lot of times when we're searching for ways to exercise our integrity, I think we are given opportunities, whether we like them or not, and or we're ready for them or not. And what this looked like was, I went out to dinner one night with a group of my girlfriends for a birthday party. And what I had always done was, I had always played the rock in my relationships. I'd always played the one who asked everybody else how they were doing, but no one was necessarily like supporting me. At least that's the story that I told myself. And that came from childhood, but that's another, whole nother story.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting at the dinner table with everyone. And of course, I ask each person how they're doing, and everyone responds. And then I sat there, kind of stewing inside, knowing, why hasn't anyone asked me? Why hasn't anyone asked me in return? And I started to really kind of take on this victim role of, like, see the what I believe about myself is true. No one is here to support me. No one is here, and I'm deserving of support. So it was almost this, like, old story that I told myself, coupled with the integrity that I know now, that I deserve support. So I decided to say something. So in these moments where you are finally aware of your integrity and
Hmm.
how your world is not matching that, you will be given opportunities to express, to say something, to address it, to make a decision, and it will feel highly uncomfortable. So I took the route of discomfort for the first time with them, and I said, I asked everyone how you're doing, and I no one has asked me. Why is that? And immediately my friends were like, "Oh my gosh, Leah, I'm," and at the time I was going through a divorce. So I was really in need of support. Um and they said, "Oh my gosh, Leah, we're always wondering how you are, but anytime we've ever asked you, you've always just said, 'Oh, I'm fine.' You don't show us that side of you. You don't show us your vulnerability. And so we didn't know you wanted us to ask." And I thought about that because I had never realized that I was showing up in that way. And I'd never realized the choice that I had in perpetuating my own story, that no one was there to support me. And so there was a lot of truth there for me. And sometimes, that kind of reflection is needed, in order for you to see maybe it's not that I am, not getting the supporting. Maybe I'm not asking. Maybe I'm not in that place of living in my integrity and saying, hey, I need help. I need support. I want to talk about this. I want to tell you what's on my heart. I'd been so out of integrity my whole life that I'd never expressed what was on my heart when I was asked. And so it was such a beautiful moment of like, I'm going to step more into my integrity and give my friends the gift of seeing who I truly, fully am, because they were really wanting that from me. And ever since then, my relationships have been so much richer because everyone's checking in on everyone. Everyone's allowed to be vulnerable, not just me being the rock that I thought that I was. And it was a lesson for me. There was a lesson in that we are the choosers of what it is that we're seeing outside of us. And sometimes it's as simple as making a different choice. And it's not that everything's happening to you, but sometimes that you're happening to you. You're sabotaging that level of love that you want. You're sabotaging the level of fulfillment that you want because you're not living in integrity, maybe, or choosing the relationships that will reflect that to you. Luckily, I did have good enough friends to evolve with me as I was learning this new skill of being vulnerable. But sometimes it looks like walking away from friendships that don't hold the space for you too.
Yeah.
So that's one way that I always celebrate living in integrity is I wasn't tapping into this beautiful resource that had always been in front of me. And when I finally was honest with myself and had the hard, uncomfortable conversation, I'm now able to reap the benefits of that conversation and that truth.
Yeah, beautiful example, and I think that many people are going to reflect on that because we all have been through those moments where, as we mentioned several times, we just get used to being the person that we have to be when we have conflict in our lives at certain points, no? Because you have to be the rock because you were the rock in the relationship of your mother and I when you were younger, no? And also relates a lot with me because I have similar things happening. So I also think that many times we keep playing the strong role because we don't know other role to play, no?
Yeah.
We don't allow ourselves to be freer or more vulnerable because we are afraid of rejection many times, no?
Yeah, I remember from our last talk how many similarities we had with our upbringings and just
Yeah.
reflecting on the impact that has on our lives. And that's, that I think that understanding why you are the way you are creates a deeper level of compassion for those moments when you are living out of integrity and you finally realize, wait a minute, I'm choosing this for myself. Understanding why you are the way you are in the ways that we're talking about is such a healing balm on all of that, because it's like, just because you realize you're out of integrity now is not an opportunity for you to criticize yourself, but maybe an opportunity for you to just have compassion for the version of you that needed to play that role, and then moving forward from there in a different role.
Yes.
Yeah.
Playing a new integrity role, let's say.
Yes. The role of integrity. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Leah. I think this was an amazing talk. like the other episode that we record. I think people are going to really, really benefit from everything that we have discussed. And I think my final thoughts is just when are you going to launch the book, more or less, so that people know, and where can they look for to buy it, and everything that you want them to know.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for letting me speak and express my excitement about the book too.
No,
It's
well,
Yeah, it's on Amazon, and so it will be released on the 21st of December.
okay.
So it's on Kindle, and if you're an ebook person, and then there's also a paperback version, but you can get both on Amazon, which is easy to do, easy to find. And if you want some like updates on like when or what that book will be about and some different sneak peeks of the different episodes, I will be sharing stuff on my Instagram page, which is Leah E. Morris, and on my newsletter. So that's something that I'll hand over to you to share with your audience.
Perfect. Yes, I will put the links in the comments of your social platforms, and so that people can access the information. Thank you very much. It was a real pleasure.
Yes, thank you so much.
I'm eager to read that book.
Oh, thank you. I'm eager to hear what you think.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.